Hello everyone and welcome back to my series on how to write a sentence. Today is part 2 of this series, and yes, I am wearing the same shirt as last time, thanks for noticing. This series is to help beginning writers, ESL writers, anyone who wants to become a writer but is too overwhelmed by all of the bits and pieces that go into creative writing. In my last lesson, I talked about the basic structure of a sentence, common problems with making a basic sentence, and ways you can break the rules when making a basic sentence. But today I want to look at verbs and adverbs. Like I said before, don't worry too much about the grammar jargon. These are the technical terms for these pieces of a sentence, but you don't need to know them thoroughly to be a fantastic writer. So today let's look at verbs and adverbs. Today I will be teaching you how to choose a good storytelling tense, as well as using strong verbs in your writing, and how to use adverbs well in creative writing. So first let's talk about tenses. So what is a tense? A tense is the time an event takes place. So this will be very important for all of your sentences. Examples: she danced. Simple past, she dances. Simple present, she will dance. Simple future. So there are actually 12 tenses if you want to have a mini stroke while reading this chart. It does feel like a lot right off the bat, but don't worry too much if you make mistakes with these verb tenses. Your editor will check it and fix it for you. Remember, you do have an editor. They are wonderful people and they will fix all of your problems, because no matter how good you are at English, even if it is your only language, you will make mistakes, and that's okay. So just learn as best as you can. There are lots of great resources for learning verb tenses, so I will not be going over this very much. What I would like to focus on instead is storytelling tenses. So the two basic tenses in storytelling are past, that's the story took place in the past, or present, the story is taking place now. Let's look at past tense first, because this is the most used format in storytelling. This is most traditional. This is probably the most natural one to use when telling a story. It's also the least distracting. It's easy for the reader to immerse themselves in the story, and it has a narrative feel. The reader feels like they are listening to a completed series of events, so there is a definite ending and they want to know what that is. So my books are always in past tense, and so today I would like to give you an example of using past tense with one of my scenes from my new book coming out next year. This is one of the first scenes in the book. I'm going to attempt to read this, and just to warn you again, I am not a vocal actor. But let's take a look at this scene. I leaned over the staircase rail like a child at Christmas. "Which one is my husband, do you think?" I asked Lena enthusiastically. I searched the room looking for a gentleman who might pique my interest. Thankfully, the most unattractive men already had women on their arms, meaning I was safe from their claws. My eyes wandered around the room, stopping on a man on the side of the room who was standing towards the balcony. His broad shoulders stood taller and wider than anyone else's in the room, his eyes and hair darker than the night behind him. He raised a glass of wine to his lips, and something in my chest fluttered as he swallowed. He was certainly a sight to look at, and I didn't mind it. He raised his head. His gaze met mine, and he looked at me in a way that stole my breath. But not from romantic notions. It was more like looking into the eyes of the devil. So that is an example from my book on using past tense. My editor might be fixing some of those sentences later. But as you can see, this is a very natural way of telling a story. You probably never even realized as a reader that most stories are in past tense. Now, some writers choose to write in present tense. This has been gaining in popularity, especially in genre fiction, especially in young adult genre fiction. Using present tense makes it feel more like a movie. It makes it more action-packed. And it adds a little bit more tension, so even the most mundane tasks feel more active and engaging for the reader. So I took the same scene and I changed it to present tense, and you will see a little bit of a feeling mood difference as we read it together. I lean over the staircase rail like a child at Christmas. "Which one is my husband, do you think?" I asked Lena enthusiastically. I searched the room looking for a gentleman who might pique my interest. Thankfully, the most unattractive men already have women on their arms, meaning I am safe from their claws. My eyes wander around the room, stopping on a man on the side of the room who is standing towards the balcony. His broad shoulders stand taller and wider than anyone else's in the room, his eyes and hair darker than the night behind him. He raises a glass of wine to his lips, and something in my chest flutters as he swallows. He is certainly a sight to look at, and I don't mind it. He raises his head. His gaze meets mine, and he looks at me in a way that steals my breath. But it's not from romantic notions. It's more like looking into the eyes of the devil. So as you can see, it adds a little bit more tension to the scene. However, I don't like writing in present tense. I don't like reading present tense. I especially don't like present tense with first person together, especially in an action sequence, because I find it really distracting. There are actually some problems with present tense. So the first one is it's the most difficult to write. You need to practice the style a lot to do it well as a writer, because if you do it badly, people notice much more than if you're writing in past tense. Also, it's the most difficult to read. Some readers dislike this style of writing and they don't enjoy reading it. I am one of those readers. I do not like books in present tense. I think in my lifetime I have read maybe 2 books in present tense. I couldn't even get through The Hunger Games, which is written in present tense, just because that style of writing is too distracting for me and I can't focus. And it's harder to use storytelling elements. If you want to use flashbacks or some wider type of narration, you can't use it as easily as you can in past tense. Now that you've decided which tense you want to use past, you want to use present, now you need to make sentences with strong verbs. So my first tip on making strong sentences is to brainstorm actions. So we have the sentence here, she walked to the food cart. Walked is good enough, but it doesn't have any mood to it. It doesn't have any feeling, it doesn't have any life really. So I need to think how she's walking to this food cart. Is she walking slow? I can use tiptoed. It's a little weird in this scenario, but maybe she wants to be sneaky. Or shuffled, strolled. Walked is kind of in the middle. It's a neutral word. It doesn't have any real feeling to it. If I want to use fast, she raced, she bolted, she ran. So I want to think, how is she walking to this food cart? Another sentence I can use. It looks like you want to leave, he said. Now, he can say this in a bunch of different ways. I can't really tell his mood by it sounds like you want to leave. So if he says it really soft, if he really likes this girl, he could be whispering it, he could be teasing, he could be joking. If he's really irritated, he could be snapping, he could be barking. Now, most of the time when you do dialogue, when you're doing characters talking, using said is the best because it's the most invisible. But I will go over dialogue in another video. Right now I want to focus on choosing the correct verb while you're writing a sentence. So tip number 2, remember emotions. She walked to the food cart, okay? So if she's happy, she probably skipped. Or if she's stressed, she raced. Or if she's sad, she shuffled, right? So I want to think about the emotion of the character as I write the sentence. And here's another one. It looks like you want to leave, he said. Okay, I can change it to if he's in love, teased. If he's annoyed, snapped. If he's sad, whined. And number 3, important, avoid adverbs. So she walked slowly to the food cart. No, take out slowly. We don't want to use slowly. You can say she strolled to the food cart. She drug her feet to the food cart. She doesn't want to go. She shuffled to the food cart. She's walking slowly. She moseyed to the food cart, if you want to use kind of some southern slang. Or she sauntered to the food cart if you want to be overly fancy for no real reason. Same with this guy. Said rudely. Take out rudely. We don't need that adverb. It's not very useful. You can say snapped. You can say growled. You can say mocked. So a lot of writers and editors will tell you don't use adverbs. In fact, Stephen King is famous for his quote, "I believe the road to hell is paved with adverbs." I feel like that's a little dramatic, but Stephen King makes way more money than I do. But at the same time, there are times you can use adverbs. So in my scene, as you can see, I used one, enthusiastically. And the reason I used this adverb, yes, there is a reason. The reason I used enthusiastically was because I couldn't fit another action in here because of the action right before it. So it says, I lean over the staircase rail like a child at Christmas. So it does show some enthusiasm, but I want to really sell you on this enthusiasm. I want you to know that this character is excited about looking for her husband. So which one is my husband, do you think? I don't have any room here for another action because I just put one here and I put one here. So I don't want to put in an action in the middle because that's just too many actions. So I put in enthusiastically to make it even clearer that this person is excited. You can also use adverbs to show contrast. This is actually really useful in dialogue. So here's an example. I love your dress, he said flatly. Okay, so that's a contrast. His words and his tone of voice don't match. And so now we can see that he's being sarcastic or he doesn't really care. But you can also have a choice, right? So this is a great party, he said bitterly. So you can totally use that. Or You can say, "This is a great party," he grumbled. So you can replace the adverb with a strong verb, or you can even just keep the adverb if you haven't used any adverbs in a while. This is the great thing about writing, is it is your choice. There is no right or wrong way to do it. Even if your editor tells you to change something, you can tell them, "No, I like it, I'm going to keep it." I have done that a few times. Nothing has broken. The choice is yours, but generally speaking, a strong verb is much better than an adverb. But if you do use adverbs, use it for these 4 reasons. 1, for contrast. If the tone of your character's voice doesn't match the words that they're saying, using an adverb makes it more ironic. You can use it for clarity. If scenes or actions can be made even clearer, combined with strong verbs, you can use an adverb. If there's no room for an action, so the example I showed you before, an action would slow down the narration, so I just used an adverb. And when you haven't used one recently, you can sprinkle in a few adverbs in your writing. That's totally fine. So let's recap. First, we talked about tenses. So choose your story tense. The past tense is the most comfortable for both readers and writers, but present tense can add a little extra tension to the scene. Make sure you think about why you are choosing your tense. And then next we talked about verb choice. Okay, so make sure to use strong, clear verbs. Brainstorm possible actions and remember the emotions of the scene and the characters in the sentence. Also avoid using adverbs. Of course, you can use adverbs. It's totally up to you. The best times to use adverbs is for contrast, to be extra clear, when there's no room for action, and when you haven't used one in a while. So that is it for today's lesson on verbs and adverbs. In my next lesson, I would like to talk about adjectives. Adjectives are words that we use to describe something. So I will be teaching you how to brainstorm adjectives, how to choose the right adjectives, and common problems people have with descriptions. For more practice today with tenses and choosing verbs and adverbs, I have created a free mini workbook for today's lesson. Just click the link in the description to download the free workbook. It will have notes from today's video as well as some exercises and examples for you to study from. If you found this video helpful, please click the like button and subscribe for the next video coming. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I will do my best to answer them. I hope you continue to be beautiful beasts, and I will catch you tigers later. Peace.